Back again, this time to talk about my vampire reads for Maypire. So I actually started Dracula in April, and I got about halfway through Dracula and realized that this copy of Dracula, which I think is beautiful and absolutely love, has not been proofread. It's not an abridged version. But there are missing words in sentences, like there's an and missing and I can tell that and should be there, or some other word is missing and I'm like, well, this word should be in that sentence. And then on a couple of occasions, there was an entire sentence missing. So I looked around online. Do I have like some kind of weird abridged version here or what? But no, this is supposed to be the complete version of Dracula. And at first when I was reading this, I thought, well, maybe the writing's just weird and maybe I'm just having trouble understanding the writing, but that wasn't it. It's just been poorly proofread. So I didn't want to read it anymore in a version that was poorly proofread like that. So I set it aside and I ordered the Norton Classics second edition. And waited for that. It took about a week to get here, at which time I went ahead and finished it. So I finished that this month and absolutely loved it. This was a reread for me. I read this when I was in my early 20s, like 21 or 22. But I barely remembered it. About the only thing I could really remember was the stuff about the Demeter. That was my favorite part of the book, so I'm not really surprised that was all I remembered. And even through my second read through, that was my favorite story portion of the book was the stuff about the Demeter. But yeah, I really loved it. I think it's brilliant. Could you nitpick it? Yes, you absolutely could. There are some flaws, but overall, I think it's an absolutely brilliant novel, and I loved it. And I will be doing Vampril and Maypire next year, and so I'm going to reread this. I felt like I didn't give it enough attention. My reading of it was broken apart, and there were a lot of times I've been really, really busy this month. So there were many times where I read 10 pages, put it down, and 30 minutes later I'd come back, read 10 pages, put it down. So I felt like I didn't get a solid reading experience. So I'm going to read this a second time next year. Then after I finished Dracula, I started Drafts of Dracula. And I read about 20 pages of this. And, my heart wasn't in it. I liked what I read, and I can tell that I'm really going to enjoy this. But I was distracted by Something in the Blood, which is Bram Stoker's big biography here. I started this the same evening that I started Drafts of Dracula, and I just really got super into this. It's so good. I'm almost done. It's the 28th of May, so May's not technically over yet, but I wanted to do this video now since I know I'm not having anything else to do with vampires. Book Trek is starting in a couple of days, so I'm over vampires now. I want to move on to Star Trek. But anyways, this is so good. I mean, I'm on page 509, I think. Yeah, 509. And this book, I'm not including the bibliography here. There's 614 pages. So I've got just over 100 pages left. I'm definitely going to finish this tonight before I go to bed because I don't have to get up and work in the morning since it's Memorial Day and everything. So yeah, I'm going to stay up and finish this. And then I'm going to read some Star Trek. But anyways, yeah, this is fabulous. This is so good. There is a lot of information in here. Not only are you getting the information about Bram Stoker himself that is known, but you're getting to know all about the people who were in his life and who surrounded him, authors and stuff that he may have read, authors we know he did read, books, tons of books are listed in here. Let's see what else. Yeah, you also get a bit of a history lesson, like some of the things that were going on in England and in parts of the world at that time. So I feel like David Scull did a really good job of being super thorough. He really gave Bram Stoker's life context. You could place the things that are known about Stoker. He was apparently extremely secretive. And you could place him within the context and really see the world he was living in, and very easily imagine the things that must have been going through his mind when he was writing his letters and, and his stories and his reviews. He reviewed a lot and wrote a lot of journalistic articles and stuff. So yeah, this is an excellent book biography. My only complaint is that David Scull interjects his opinion a lot more often than I would have liked him to. I don't really like it when scholars get too crazy with their own opinions, and he does that quite a lot, and I don't really like that part. But the rest of it, amazing, and I would absolutely recommend it. Let's see, then I read The Black Vampire, A Legend of Saint Domingo, 1819. The author isn't actually known. This is some kind of a pseudonym. Uriah Derrick D'Arcy. And I read this because Sean really raved about it. He absolutely loved this story. I hated this. It would have been a good story. The premise was great. The setting was great. The vampire was good. Would have been good. But the person who wrote this was like 12 years old or something. This is one of the most poorly written stories I have ever read in my life. It is awful. Just awful. And I don't recommend anybody read this unless you're curious. For people who are curious, or maybe you're a vampire type completionist, in quotes, you can't really complete vampires. But then you would want to read it, but it was terrible. If you just want to read a good vampire story, this is not your story. Then I also read Salem's Lot, which I have in this bind up of The Shining Carrie and Salem's Lot. And I actually did most of this on audiobook. So it was fabulous. I thought the audiobook was really good as well. And I really enjoyed that. It's just a really good, really entertaining vampire story. Really liked it. And it took place in a small town in New England. And it really, one of the things that Stephen King is so good at is really giving you the small town experience. I felt like I was in that small town and understood what it was like to be part of a small town. I'm from a small town myself, maybe not as small as the one in the book here, but my town has only got 15,000 people in it. So it's just really good. I really like that about Stephen King. All the characters were amazing in here. So yeah, really enjoyed that. So that's all I got read this month. I was super busy and just had so much going on. And also Something in the Blood, you really need to carve out a lot of time to read this. I started to take notes, but I had to give up on the notes. There's just too much here, and I just didn't have enough time to really give this biography the attention that it really deserved. So I'm going to reread this at some point. I want to reread this. There's just every page is packed with things that I want to stop and look up or write down or talk about in my book journal. And it just inspired so many thoughts. And I gave up on the notes. I was just like, if I take notes on every single thing, I'm not going to get through this. And there was other reading that I wanted to move into, like, Book Trek. So yeah, I gave up on the notes, but I am going to go back and reread this at some point and carve out a full month to do nothing but read this biography. So like I said, next year I will be doing this again. I'll do Vampril and Maypire again because I only got through about half of my vampire books. And I'll call that the end of the video.